Hello there and welcome to the Sleepy Science channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you've had a long day filled with noise and hurry, or perhaps you're simply the kind of person who finds comfort in gentle facts and oceanic mysteries rather than counting sheep. Either way, you're exactly where you need to be. Tonight, we're going to drift together into the world beneath the waves, a world that covers more than 70% of our planet, yet remains more mysterious than the surface of distant moons. The ocean. Just thinking about it can slow your breathing, can't it? That vast, ancient body of water that's been here long before us, that will continue its rhythmic dance long after we're gone. There's something deeply comforting about the ocean's permanence, its patient rhythms, the way it simply exists without asking anything of you. Tonight, we're going to explore its gentle secrets together, facts that feel less like information and more like lullabies, truths that remind us how small and safe we are in this vast, beautiful world. Before we begin our journey into the deep, I want you to get comfortable. Adjust your pillow, pull your blanket up just the way you like it, and let your body sink a little deeper into your bed. There's nowhere else you need to be right now. If you're enjoying this journey, and if you'd like more peaceful explorations like this one, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button if you're feeling generous. It helps others find their way to this calm space too. But truly, there's no pressure. You're already doing everything perfectly just by being here. Tonight's collection of oceanic wonders will wash over you like gentle waves on a distant shore. Some facts you'll catch fully, others might slip past as you drift deeper into rest, and that's exactly as it should be. The ocean doesn't demand your full attention. It simply invites you to float, to let go, to trust in something larger than yourself. So take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Let's descend together into the cool, quiet world beneath the surface, where everything moves slowly and time feels different. The ocean is waiting, patient as always, ready to share its ancient, soothing secrets. The ocean holds approximately 321 million cubic miles of water, a number so vast it becomes almost abstract, almost dreamlike. If you tried to count all the drops in the ocean, giving each one a single second of your time, you'd be counting for millions upon millions of years. But tonight, you don't need to count anything at all. Just imagine that vastness, spread across the globe like a soft blue blanket. All that water, moving in slow, eternal rhythms, tides rising and falling in patterns set by the moon, currents flowing along ancient paths, waves rolling toward shores they've touched for millennia. You're lying here safe and warm while all that water holds its place, patient and powerful, asking nothing of you, simply existing in its vast, peaceful abundance. Beneath the surface of the sea, sound travels nearly 5 times faster than it does through the air around you. Down there in the deep, whale songs can journey across entire ocean basins, traveling hundreds of miles through the dark water. Imagine that, a humpback whale singing off the coast of Hawaii, and another whale hearing that song near Alaska, the melody carried faithfully through the cool darkness. The ocean is a conductor of voices, a keeper of messages, a medium where sound becomes something almost magical. As you lie here tonight, perhaps the ocean is carrying songs you'll never hear, conversations between creatures you'll never meet, a symphony of life playing out in the depths while you drift peacefully toward sleep. The deepest part of the ocean is the Mariana Trench, plunging down nearly 7 miles below the surface, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. If you could stand at the bottom of that trench and look up toward the light, the pressure of all that water would be crushing, yet life exists even there. Strange, gentle creatures that glow in the darkness, that move slowly through a world of perpetual night. There's something oddly comforting about knowing that life finds a way even in the deepest, darkest places. It reminds us that we too can rest in our own depths, can sink into sleep without fear, can trust that even in darkness, we're held safely by forces larger than ourselves. The ocean's color, that beautiful, calming blue, comes from the way water absorbs and scatters sunlight. Water absorbs the warm colors first, reds and oranges and yellows, and reflects back the cool, soothing blues and greens. It's as if the ocean itself has chosen the most calming colors for us to see, has selected from the spectrum of light only those hues that quiet the mind and ease the soul. When you look at the ocean, you're seeing water's preference for peace, its natural tendency toward the colors of twilight and dreams. Tonight, as you close your eyes, you might imagine that same gentle blue surrounding you, holding you, reflecting back only calmness. Every day, the ocean produces more than half of the oxygen we breathe, not through the waves or the water itself, but through tiny organisms called phytoplankton. These microscopic plants drift near the surface by the billions, invisible to the naked eye, yet collectively breathing life into our atmosphere. With every breath you take right now, you're breathing in the ocean's gift, the patient work of creatures so small you could hold millions of them in a single drop of water. Breathe in slowly and know that the ocean is breathing with you, has been breathing with you your entire life, will continue long after you drift into sleep. You're connected to something vast and generous. The ocean has tides because of the moon's gentle gravitational pull, our celestial companion tugging at the waters, creating rhythms that every shore knows by heart. High tide, low tide, the eternal dance between earth and moon, water and stone. Twice a day, every coastline experiences this shift, this proof that we're part of a solar system, part of something cosmic and choreographed. As you lie here tonight, the tides are turning somewhere, water rising or falling in perfect time with the moon's transit across the sky. You don't need to think about it or manage it or control it. The tides keep their schedule without any help from you, just as your own rhythms. Your breathing, your heartbeat, your journey into sleep continue without effort. Coral reefs, those underwater gardens of color and life, grow incredibly slowly, sometimes just a few millimeters per year. A large coral formation might be hundreds of years old, built patiently over generations, each tiny polyp adding its small contribution to the collective structure. There's no rushing in the coral's world, no anxiety about deadlines or productivity. Just slow, steady growth, trusting in the process, building something beautiful without hurry. As you rest here tonight, your body is doing its own slow work, healing, restoring, growing in ways you'll never consciously notice. Like the coral, you're part of something larger, something patient, something that knows how to build beauty slowly. The ocean contains nearly 20 million tons of gold, dissolved in tiny concentrations throughout the water. Not enough to see or extract easily, but it's there, treasure scattered through the depths, glittering particles suspended in the endless blue. Imagine that. All that gold just existing, unclaimed, unworried about, simply being part of the ocean's composition. The sea doesn't hoard its wealth or flaunt it. It just holds everything within itself, gold and salt, kelp and whales, secrets and songs, all mixed together in patient abundance. You too contain treasures, experiences, memories, wisdom, and like the ocean, you don't need to display them or prove them. They're simply part of you, dissolved into who you are. Jellyfish have existed in Earth's oceans for at least 500 million years, making them older than dinosaurs, older than trees, older than almost anything else we can name. They've witnessed the slow evolution of life on this planet, drifting through ancient seas while continents shifted and species came and went. Yet jellyfish haven't changed much. They've found their form, their way of being, and simply continued. There's something peaceful about that kind of constancy, that gentle persistence. As your mind begins to drift, you might imagine yourself like a jellyfish, pulsing slowly, moving with currents rather than against them, trusting the flow, needing nothing more than to exist in this moment. The ocean has layers, each with its own temperature and light, its own community of creatures. Near the surface, the sunlight zone sparkles with visibility and warmth. Below that, the twilight zone dims into blue-gray mystery. Deeper still, the midnight zone holds darkness and pressure, yet even there life glows with bioluminescence, creatures making their own light in the endless night. You too have layers, thoughts near the surface, deeper feelings below, and perhaps an inner depth where dreams wait in luminous darkness. Tonight, you're descending through your own layers, leaving the surface behind, sinking toward rest. Sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of ocean by sensing Earth's magnetic field, an ability we barely understand but which guides them home with remarkable accuracy. A turtle hatched on a Florida beach might spend decades swimming the Atlantic, yet when it's time to lay eggs, she'll return to that same beach, drawn by invisible forces, trusting in a knowledge deeper than thought. As you lie here tonight, you too have instincts deeper than conscious knowing. Your body knows how to sleep, how to dream, how to restore itself. You don't need to figure it out or try too hard. Like the turtle, you can trust the invisible guidance that leads you home to rest. The average depth of the ocean is about 12,000 feet, but if you could somehow drain all that water away, you'd discover an underwater landscape more dramatic than anything on dry land. Mountain ranges longer than the Himalayas, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, vast plains stretching for thousands of miles in gentle emptiness. All of that hidden geography exists right now, beneath the waves, unseen but real. It reminds us that there's always more than what we see on the surface, always depths we haven't explored, mysteries we haven't solved. And that's okay. You don't need to know everything. Tonight, you can rest in the comfort of unsolved mysteries, unexplored depths, questions that don't need answers right now. The ocean's salt comes primarily from rocks on land, minerals dissolved by rain and rivers, carried grain by grain to the sea over millions of years. Every river that flows to the ocean brings its tiny tribute of dissolved minerals, and the ocean holds them all, never overflowing, maintaining a salinity that life depends upon. The sea has been collecting salt for so long that it tastes of Earth's history, of mountains slowly worn down, of time measured in geological epochs. Your own tears taste of salt too, a reminder that you carry within you a trace of the ancient ocean, that your cells still swim in a miniature sea inherited from your evolutionary ancestors. Waves are mostly created by wind blowing across the ocean's surface, transferring energy from air to water. A wave might begin as a gentle ripple thousands of miles from any shore, then travel across empty ocean for days, carrying that initial energy until it finally rises up and breaks on a distant beach. The wave you see crashing on shore today might have started its journey halfway around the world, might have traveled beneath stars you'll never see, across waters no human witnessed. There's something beautiful about that patience, that long journey toward completion. Your own day was like that, 2 moments of energy transferred from one experience to the next, all leading here, to this place of rest where everything can finally break gently and dissolve into peace. Octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood, a fact so strange it sounds like mythology, yet it's perfectly true. 2 hearts pump blood to the gills, while the third circulates it to the rest of the body. When an octopus swims, the heart that serves the body actually stops beating, which is why these creatures prefer to crawl rather than swim. It's less strain on their unusual cardiovascular system. Imagine being so uniquely designed, so different from most other creatures, yet perfectly adapted to your own particular way of living. You too are uniquely designed, with your own rhythms and needs that might not match anyone else's. Tonight, you can rest in your own particular way, at your own particular pace, trusting your own heart's rhythm. The ocean's surface is in constant motion, but about 1,000 feet down lies a layer called the thermocline where temperature drops rapidly. Below that boundary, the water is consistently cold and much more stable, less influenced by storms above, less subject to the weather's moods. Ships caught in hurricanes might sink partly to escape the violent surface waves, seeking the calmer water beneath. There are times when the best response to chaos is to go deeper, to descend below the turbulence into the quiet stability that exists underneath. As you drift toward sleep tonight, you're descending through your own thermocline, leaving the day's surface disturbances behind, sinking into deeper, calmer water where nothing can disturb your rest. Scientists estimate that we've explored less than 5% of the ocean. The vast majority remains unmapped, unseen, unknown. There could be species down there we've never encountered, underwater formations we've never documented, entire ecosystems carrying on their ancient business completely independent of human knowledge. The ocean keeps its secrets not out of stubbornness, but simply because it's so vast, so deep, so patient that it can't help but hold mystery. Your own depths are like this too. There are parts of yourself you haven't fully explored, dreams you haven't fully understood, potential you haven't fully realized. And that's not a problem to solve. It's simply the nature of being deep and vast and worthy of a lifetime of gentle discovery. Many fish sleep with their eyes open, moving into a state of rest while remaining alert enough to avoid danger. They find a safe spot, perhaps in coral, perhaps in kelp, perhaps in open water, and they simply hover there, breathing steadily, letting their bodies restore while their basic awareness continues. It's a different kind of sleep than yours, but it serves the same purpose: recovery, restoration, the necessary pause between one day and the next. You don't need to sleep like a fish, but you can appreciate this truth. That rest comes in many forms, that there's no single right way to recover, that your own way of moving towards sleep is exactly what you need. Seawater freezes at a lower temperature than freshwater because of its salt content, about 28 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 32. This means the polar oceans remain liquid even in brutal cold, providing habitat for seals and penguins and Arctic fish that have adapted to these frigid conditions. Salt gives water resilience, helps it resist the freeze, allows it to remain fluid and flowing even when everything around it is ice. Perhaps you too have developed resilience through life's experiences. Small difficulties dissolved into your character like salt in water, making you able to stay fluid and adaptable even when circumstances grow cold. Tonight, you can rest knowing you're more resilient than you realize, that you've survived every difficult day you've encountered so far. The ocean floor is home to hydrothermal vents, cracks in the seabed where superheated water erupts into the cold depths, carrying minerals from deep within Earth's crust. Around these vents, entire ecosystems thrive in complete darkness, feeding not on sunlight but on chemicals and heat from the planet's interior. Life finds a way even in the most unlikely places, even without the things we think are essential. These creatures survive on heat from Earth's core, on the planet's own deep energy, reminding us that sources of sustenance exist in unexpected places. When you feel depleted, there might be reserves you haven't tapped yet, warmth rising from depths you haven't acknowledged. For now, though, you don't need to tap any reserves. You can simply rest. Sea otters hold hands while they sleep so they don't drift apart in the current. They float on their backs in groups called rafts, wrap kelp around themselves to anchor in place, and reach out to clasp paws with their companions. It's one of nature's most endearing images. These small creatures understanding instinctively that togetherness provides safety, that connection prevents loss. Even in sleep, they maintain that bond, that gentle touch that says, "I'm here, you're here, we're together." As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might think of the people who matter to you, the connections that anchor you in life's currents, the invisible hands that hold you even when you're not aware of them. You're not drifting alone. The ocean contains thousands of seamounts, underwater mountains that rise up from the abyssal plain but don't break the surface. Some come within meters of the waves above, yet remain hidden, their peaks eternally submerged, hosting communities of coral and fish that never see the sun. These are secret mountains, private kingdoms beneath the blue, places of height and grandeur that ask for no recognition, that simply exist in their quiet elevation. You too contain heights, accomplishments, strengths, moments of rising above, that don't need to break the surface, that don't require public recognition. Some of your best qualities might be like seamounts, known only to you and those who dive deep enough to discover them. Dolphins sleep by resting one half of their brain at a time, keeping the other half awake to control breathing and watch for threats. It's called unihemispheric sleep, and it means a dolphin is never fully unconscious, never completely vulnerable. One eye stays open, literally, while half the brain dreams and the other half keeps watch. What an exhausting way to live, you might think, never fully able to let go, to trust, to surrender to deep rest. Tonight, you have a gift dolphins don't have. You can sleep completely, can let every part of you rest at once, can trust that you're safe enough to truly let go. Your breath will continue without conscious control. You don't need to keep watch. Everything can rest together. The Sargasso Sea, located in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, has no land boundaries. It's defined entirely by ocean currents that circle it, creating a relatively still area in the midst of moving water. Seaweed floats on its surface in vast golden rafts, creating floating forests where young sea turtles hide and small fish find shelter. It's a place made entirely of water and weed and current, yet it has a distinct identity, a clear presence on maps and in the minds of sailors. Sometimes boundaries don't have to be solid to be real. Sometimes you can create space for yourself not by building walls, but by understanding the currents of your own life, by finding the still center in the midst of motion. You're doing beautifully. Take a moment here, just a soft pause in our journey through oceanic wonders. Notice your breathing. It's probably slower now than when we began, deeper and easier. That's your body's natural response to this gentle stream of peaceful information, this current of calming facts carrying you toward rest. There's no rush to get anywhere. We have all night, and even if you drift away before we reach the end, that's exactly what these facts are for. Let your body sink a little heavier into your bed. Unclench your jaw if it's tight. Soften your shoulders. The ocean doesn't hurry, and neither do you need to. We'll continue our descent together, deeper into the quiet blue, where sleep is waiting patiently. Seahorses are the only species on Earth where males become pregnant and give birth. The female deposits her eggs into the male's brood pouch, and he carries them for weeks, providing nutrients and protection until the tiny seahorses are ready to emerge. Then he releases them into the water, sometimes hundreds at a time, each one perfectly formed and immediately independent. Nature finds such creative ways to organize life, such unexpected solutions to the challenge of continuation. What seems impossible or backwards at first might simply be a different way of accomplishing the same essential goal. As you rest tonight, your own body is doing its work in ways you'll never consciously direct. Cells dividing, memories consolidating, growth happening in darkness and silence. Trust the process, just as seahorses trust their unusual arrangement. The ocean's bioluminescent creatures create light through chemical reactions in their bodies. No heat, no electricity, just pure cold light emerging from living tissue. Deep-sea fish flash signals to potential mates or lure prey with glowing appendages. Jellyfish pulse with ghostly blue illumination. Squid spray glowing clouds to confuse predators. In the darkness of the deep ocean, life doesn't curse the lack of sun. It simply makes its own light, efficient and beautiful and perfectly sufficient. When your own world feels dark, you too have the capacity to generate illumination from within. But tonight, darkness is your friend, your invitation to rest. You don't need to generate anything. You can simply appreciate that light and dark both have their place, and right now, darkness is exactly right. Whales migrate thousands of miles each year between feeding and breeding grounds, navigating with a precision that scientists still don't fully understand. A gray whale born in the warm lagoons of Baja California will swim to the Arctic to feed, then return to those same lagoons to give birth, a round trip of up to 12,000 miles. The calf that's born there will somehow know, years later, to make the same journey, to find feeding grounds it's never seen. This knowledge is passed down not through maps or instruction, but through something deeper, instinct, genetic memory, a wisdom that lives in the body rather than the mind. Your own body carries wisdom like this, knows things your conscious mind has forgotten or never learned. Trust it tonight. It knows how to sleep. The pressure at the ocean's deepest points is roughly 8 tons per square inch, enough to crush most submarines, to compress even steel. Yet creatures live there comfortably, their bodies perfectly adapted to that immense weight. What would kill you in seconds is their normal, everyday environment. They don't experience it as pressure because they're made for it, built for those depths, carrying internal pressures that balance the external force. You've likely experienced your own kinds of pressure, stress, expectations, responsibilities that felt crushing. Yet you're still here, which means you found ways to bear it, to balance it, to survive in conditions that once seemed impossible. You're stronger than you know. But tonight, let all that pressure dissolve. Down here in your bed, the only weight you need to feel is the comfortable heaviness of your blanket. Coral may look like rock or plant, but it's actually colonies of tiny animals called polyps living together in limestone structures they secrete themselves. Each polyp is a separate creature, yet they function as one organism, sharing nutrients and responding to threats collectively. It's cooperation at the cellular level, a built-in understanding that survival comes through connection, through creating something larger than any individual could manage alone. The coral doesn't worry about which polyp is contributing more or whether the distribution is fair. It simply exists as a collective, each part supporting the whole. As you drift deeper into rest, you might remember all the ways you're supported by a larger whole: family, community, systems of care both visible and invisible. You're not alone, even when sleep makes you feel separate. The sea contains layers of different salinity, creating underwater rivers that flow within the ocean itself. Denser, saltier water moving along the bottom, while lighter water floats above. These submarine rivers have their own currents and characteristics, sometimes flowing in different directions than the surface currents above them. It's water within water, motion within motion, complexity layered on complexity in ways the surface never reveals. Your own inner life is like this too. Surface thoughts flowing one direction while deeper currents of feeling move another way. Dreams running beneath waking concerns. Multiple layers of experience all happening at once. Tonight, you can let all those layers settle, can stop trying to manage every current, can simply be the ocean. Deep, mysterious, containing multitudes without needing to explain or organize them. Sea turtles cry constantly, but not from sadness. They're secreting excess salt through glands near their eyes, a neat biological solution to drinking seawater all day long. What looks like tears is actually just efficient salt management, the body finding a way to extract what it needs and expel what it doesn't. We humans do this too, in our own ways, processing experience, keeping what nourishes us, releasing what doesn't serve us. Sometimes what looks like sadness is just the natural process of letting go, of maintaining the right balance, of being a living creature with feelings that flow through rather than staying trapped inside. You don't need to analyze your emotions tonight. Like the sea turtle, You can trust your body's processes, can let everything flow as it needs to without judgment. The ocean's abyssal plains are among the flattest places on Earth, stretching for thousands of miles with almost no variation in elevation. Covered in fine sediment that's been drifting down for millions of years, these plains are essentially underwater deserts, quiet, empty, dark, yet somehow peaceful in their vast uniformity. Nothing happens quickly on the abyssal plain. A single shark's tooth might lie visible on the surface for centuries before enough sediment buries it. Time moves differently there. Patience is measured in geological terms, and nothing rushes. As you sink deeper into sleep tonight, you're descending toward your own abyssal plain, a place flat and quiet, where time stops meaning much, where you can rest in vast emptiness that feels not lonely but peaceful, not boring but profoundly calm. Kelp forests can grow up to 2 feet per day, making them some of the fastest growing organisms on Earth. Starting from a holdfast anchored to rock, kelp reaches toward the surface, toward light, creating underwater forests where fish hide and seals hunt and sea otters wrap themselves in fronds to sleep. These forests rise from darkness into light in a matter of weeks, creating entire ecosystems almost overnight in biological terms. Growth happens faster than we think sometimes. Transformation occurs when conditions are right, and what seems fixed might actually be in rapid flux beneath the surface. You too are always growing in ways you don't notice, changing in increments too small to track daily, becoming someone slightly different each time you wake. But tonight, you don't need to grow or change or become anything. You can simply be. The Mediterranean Sea evaporated almost completely about 5 million years ago, leaving behind a basin of salt miles thick. For thousands of years, it was a desert valley deeper than the Grand Canyon, baking under the sun, hostile to life. Then catastrophically, the Atlantic broke through the land barrier at what's now Gibraltar, and the basin refilled in perhaps as little as 2 years, a waterfall thousands of times larger than Niagara, pouring day and night until the sea returned. What was empty became full again. What seemed permanent, that vast dry valley, proved to be just a phase. The Mediterranean remembered how to be a sea. If you felt empty or dried up, exhausted or depleted, remember this. Restoration is always possible. Conditions change, barriers break, and what was lost can flow back in. For now, rest. Let sleep fill you like water returning. Penguins propose to their mates by presenting them with a pebble, searching the beach until they find the smoothest, most perfect stone they can, then laying it before the one they've chosen. If the pebble is accepted, the pair bonds for life, using that stone as the foundation for the nest where they'll raise their young. It's a ritual so simple and so profound, one creature saying to another, "I found this and I thought of you, and I'm offering you everything I have to give." The ocean's edge is full of pebbles, but only one is chosen, only one matters, only one becomes the foundation of a family. You too have chosen things in your life, people to love, paths to follow, stones to build upon. As you rest tonight, trust those choices. They've brought you here to this moment, and you're exactly where you should be. The ocean's twilight zone, between about 600 and 3,000 feet down, contains more fish biomass than all other parts of the ocean combined. Billions of small fish rise toward the surface each night to feed, then descend again at dawn, creating the largest migration on Earth, not across space, but through depth, straight up and down, daily commuters in the vertical world. They rise into danger to find food, then retreat to safety to digest, their lives organized around this daily rhythm of risk and rest, exposure and hiding. You probably understand this rhythm, the need to engage with the world, to venture up into the light and activity and interaction, followed by the equal need to retreat, to descend into your own depths where you can process and restore. Tonight is your descent, your retreat into safety. You've spent your energy above. Now you can hide in the deep and rest. Mangrove trees grow in salt water, their roots actually extending into the ocean, creating coastal forests that blur the line between sea and land. They filter salt through their roots, concentrating it in specific leaves that eventually yellow and fall off, taking the salt with them. These trees have learned to thrive in a place where most plants would wither, have adapted to conditions that seem impossible, have made a home in the boundary between two worlds. Perhaps you felt like this sometimes, caught between expectations, belonging fully to neither category others tried to place you in, making your home in the borderlands. Mangroves teach us that these in-between spaces can be the most productive, the most alive, the most worth protecting. You don't have to be one thing or another. You can be the mangrove, roots in two worlds, thriving in your particular complexity. The Great Barrier Reef is so large it can be seen from space, a living structure built by organisms most of which are smaller than your fingernail. Those tiny polyps, working slowly over thousands of years, have created something visible from orbit, something that astronauts photograph as they pass overhead at 17,000 miles per hour. Small actions, accumulated over time, create immense results. One coral polyp accomplishes almost nothing, but millions of them, each contributing what it can, build wonders. You might feel small sometimes, might wonder if your daily efforts matter, might question whether you're building anything significant. But you are. Every day is a tiny contribution to the structure of your life, the reef of your experience. You don't need to see the whole thing from space. You just need to keep living. Keep adding your small daily calcium deposits of effort and care, and simply continuing. Starfish have no brain. They operate through a complex nervous system spread throughout their body, with each arm able to respond to stimuli somewhat independently. If a starfish is flipped upside down, one arm will take the lead in righting it, but which arm leads varies. There's no central command deciding the strategy. It's a democracy of limbs, a distributed intelligence that somehow accomplishes everything a starfish needs to accomplish without anyone being in charge. Sometimes you might feel like you need to have everything figured out, need to have one clear voice directing operations from headquarters. But maybe life works more like a starfish. Different parts of you responding to different situations. No single authority making all decisions, just a collective effort toward balance and survival. You don't have to have your brain completely in charge tonight. You can let go of central control and trust the distributed wisdom of your whole body to carry you into sleep. The ocean has weather of its own, underwater storms created not by wind but by turbulence in currents, places where water masses of different temperature and salinity collide and mix. These underwater weather systems can carry nutrients from the depths to the surface, or pull warm surface water down into the cold below, redistributing heat and sustenance in patterns that affect life for hundreds of miles. You can't see these storms from above. The surface might look calm while chaos churns beneath. It's a reminder that what appears peaceful might be complex, that calm surfaces can hide dynamic depths, that you can't always know what's happening below just by looking at what's visible. Other people are like this, carrying their own underwater weather. You are like this too. And tonight, whatever weather systems are moving through your depths, they don't need to disturb your surface. You can be calm above while processing below, can rest in your complexity without needing to resolve it. The ocean's longest mountain range is the mid-ocean ridge, stretching 40,000 miles across the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. Most people have never heard of it, yet it's longer than all the mountains on land combined. These underwater mountains mark the places where tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart, where new ocean floor is being born from the magma welling up between them. The Earth is constantly creating itself, constantly renewing, constantly pushing up new ground in hidden places where no one watches or applauds. Your own renewal happens in hidden ways too, cells replacing themselves, memories reorganizing during sleep, perspectives shifting so gradually you don't notice until one day you realize you've become someone slightly new. Tonight, while you sleep, your own hidden mountains are rising, your own renewal is happening. You don't need to direct it or even believe in it. It's happening anyway, slow and sure as geology. Some fish, called cleaner fish, make their living by eating parasites off larger fish. The big fish come to specific locations, cleaning stations, and wait their turn, sometimes even opening their mouths so the cleaner fish can swim inside and pick their teeth. It's a perfect symbiosis. The cleaner gets food, the client gets healthy, and somehow both species understand the arrangement, trust the process, know that this small fish in your mouth isn't food but help. There's vulnerability in that, isn't there? Letting something else tend to your needs, trusting in help that comes from unexpected sources, opening yourself up even though it would be so easy to close, to snap shut, to handle everything yourself. Sometimes accepting care takes more courage than going it alone. You don't have to do everything yourself, including figuring out how to sleep. You can open yourself to help, to these words, to your body's wisdom, to the simple chemistry of fatigue that wants to pull you down into rest. How are you feeling right now? Your eyelids might be getting heavier, your thoughts might be starting to drift like kelp in gentle current. That's perfect. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. These oceanic facts are like a lullaby, repetitive and soothing, meant to occupy just enough of your attention that worry can't get a foothold, but not so much that you have to stay alert. If you've drifted away from some of the facts, that's fine. You're not being tested. There's no quiz in the morning. The ocean isn't going anywhere, and neither are these truths. They'll keep being true whether you hear them all or not. Take another deep breath. Feel the weight of your body. Let yourself be heavy, like something sinking slowly through water. No effort, just gravity and surrender. We'll continue our gentle descent together. Sea anemones look like plants but are actually animals. Carnivorous creatures that catch fish in their tentacles, paralyze them with venom, then slowly consume them. Yet these deadly hunters also provide safe homes for clownfish, who are immune to the stinging cells and hide among the tentacles where predators won't follow. The anemone doesn't eat its clownfish residents. Somehow both species recognize the arrangement, honor the agreement, live together in mutual benefit despite the obvious danger. You contain contradictions like this too, parts of you that are soft and parts that are fierce, aspects of your nature that protect and aspects that nurture, the capacity to be both dangerous and safe depending on context. You're not simple and you don't have to be. You can be the anemone, beautifully complicated, offering both threat and shelter, lethal and loving all at once. The ocean's salt concentration has remained relatively stable for millions of years despite constant inflow from rivers. A balance maintained through various removal processes like salt spray, evaporation and precipitation, and chemical reactions with the seafloor. The ocean doesn't accumulate endlessly. It finds equilibrium, maintains a consistency that life depends on. Your own life seeks this kind of balance too. Experiences flow in, you process them. Some get integrated and some get released. And somehow you maintain a consistent sense of self through it all. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago, yet you're recognizably you. Like an ocean that's exchanged all its water molecules but remains the same sea. Tonight, trust that your mind knows how to process the day just passed, how to maintain your equilibrium, how to wake up tomorrow still yourself, but somehow renewed. Barnacles are crustaceans that cement themselves to rocks, boats, whales, even other barnacles, and never move again for their entire adult lives. They build a fortress of calcium plates around themselves and filter feed through an opening at the top, extending feathery legs to catch passing plankton. What seems like imprisonment is actually security. What looks like limitation is actually focus. The barnacle doesn't regret the places it didn't attach to, doesn't wonder about the rocks it could have chosen. It commits completely to its spot and makes a life there, feeding on what passes by, growing steadily, surrounded by thousands of companions who made the same choice. Your own commitments might feel limiting sometimes, to a place, a person, a path, but they're also what gives life structure and meaning. The barnacle is happy in its fortress. You can be at peace in your choices too, at least for tonight. Icebergs in the ocean are mostly freshwater, not salt. They're pieces of glaciers that calved off and floated away, carrying within them snow that fell on mountains thousands of years ago. The water in an iceberg might be 20,000 years old, older than agriculture, older than writing, frozen in time and drifting slowly toward its dissolution. When an iceberg melts, that ancient water mixes with the sea, merges with the present, loses its separate identity, but continues existing in a new form. Nothing is truly lost, just transformed. The things you've let go of, the versions of yourself you've shed, the dreams that melted, they didn't vanish. They mixed into who you are now, became part of the sea you swim in. You contain everything you've ever been, even the parts that seem gone. But you don't need to hold ice frozen forever. You can let things melt, can trust the transformation, can be both the ancient glacier and the current sea. Electric eels aren't really eels. They're a type of knife fish, more closely related to catfish than to true eels. They can generate up to 600 volts of electricity through specialized cells called electrocytes, using these shocks to hunt, navigate, and defend themselves in the murky rivers where they live. In darkness, They've developed an entirely different sense, a way of perceiving the world through electrical fields that we can't even imagine. What we call limitation, the murkiness of their habitat, the lack of light, they've turned into opportunity, developing abilities that seem like superpowers to us. Your own limitations have probably made you creative too, forced you to develop abilities you wouldn't have needed if everything had been easy and clear. The things you think of as disadvantages might actually be the source of your most unique strengths. Tonight, though, you don't need to be strong or creative or adapted. You can just be tired. You can let yourself be as simple as a creature with nothing to prove. The Pacific Ocean is so vast that it contains more water than all the other oceans combined, covers nearly a third of the Earth's surface, and is still growing. The Atlantic shrinks by a few centimeters each year while the Pacific expands. This has been happening for millions of years, the slow dance of tectonic plates, the patient shuffling of continents. The largest thing on our planet is getting larger, and we don't notice because the change happens at a pace too slow for human perception. Some of the most important changes in your life happen this way too, not in dramatic revelations but in tiny increments, millimeters per year, shifts so gradual that only looking back reveals how far you've come. You're changing right now, tonight, in ways you won't notice until much later. You're becoming the person who wakes up tomorrow. The Pacific doesn't worry about its growth or manage its expansion. It just slowly, patiently becomes more itself. Whale falls are the term for when a whale dies and sinks to the ocean floor, creating a sudden feast and habitat for deep-sea creatures. A single whale carcass can sustain a complex ecosystem for decades. First the scavengers arrive, then the opportunists, then bacteria that break down the bones, releasing nutrients that feed chemosynthetic bacteria, which in turn support worms and mollusks found nowhere else on Earth. The whale's death becomes dozens of creatures' life. Its ending becomes their beginning. Its rest becomes their activity. There's something profound in this. The idea that even in ending we provide, that our decomposition nourishes, that nothing is wasted in nature's economy. You don't need to think about endings tonight, but if you do, let the whale fall remind you that everything transforms, everything continues in new forms, and rest is never truly empty. It's always feeding something. Jellyfish are about 95% water, with no brain, no heart, no bones, no eyes. Yet they've survived for over 500 million years. They're essentially organized water, alive but barely so, drifting with currents yet somehow catching prey and reproducing and avoiding harm. They prove that you don't need complexity to endure, don't need sophisticated systems to survive, don't need to be solid to be real. Sometimes the simplest approach is the most resilient. As you drift toward sleep, you might feel yourself becoming more like a jellyfish, less solid, less defined, more water than person, thoughts diffusing into the space around you, boundaries softening, the sharp edges of your identity blurring into something more fluid and easy. It's safe to dissolve a little. You'll come back together in the morning, but for now you can be mostly water, barely here, pulsing softly in the dark. Tides are predictable centuries in advance, because they're based on the mathematical relationship between Earth, Moon, and Sun, a clockwork of gravity and motion that doesn't change or surprise us. Tide tables published decades ago are still accurate, and tide tables for the year 2050 already exist, waiting patiently in reference books and databases. There's something comforting in that level of predictability, that cosmic reliability. No matter what happens in human affairs, the tides keep their appointments, the moon continues its influence, the ocean rises and falls on schedule. In a world that can feel chaotic and uncertain, the tides remind us that some things are stable, some patterns continue, some forces are larger than our anxieties. Tonight, as you sleep, the tides are turning somewhere, faithful as always, and that faithfulness asks nothing of you in return. Sand dollars are actually alive. Flat sea urchins covered in tiny spines that move like cilia, helping them burrow into sand and travel slowly across the seafloor. What you find on the beach is only their skeleton, their test, the hard part left behind after death and bleached by the sun. The living sand dollar is purple or reddish, fuzzy with motion, stranger and more vital than the pretty disc people collect. So much of what we encounter is like this, the remains of something that was alive, the hardened artifacts of processes that have moved on. Sometimes we know things only by what they leave behind, understand life only by examining death's beautiful leavings. But you're not an artifact or a skeleton or something that's over. You're the living creature, still fuzzy with motion, still colored and strange and vital. Tonight, you're just resting. You're not done. You're just pausing in your slow journey across the floor of your own ocean. The ocean's color changes depending on what's living in it. Blooms of phytoplankton can turn it green or even red, while clearer tropical waters appear bright turquoise. The sea isn't one blue but thousands of blues and greens, each shade telling a story about depth and light and the invisible life suspended in the water. From space, the ocean is a patchwork of colors, a quilt of different ecosystems and conditions, each area distinct, each zone with its own character. You too shift in color depending on what's blooming in your inner ocean, sometimes clouded with thought plankton, sometimes clear and bright, sometimes deep and mysterious. Your moods and energies change the color of your experience, and that's not inconsistency. It's just life biology, the natural variation of a complex system. Whatever color your ocean is tonight, gray with worry, blue with calm, dark with fatigue, it's the right color for this moment. It will change again. All oceans do. Hermit crabs don't grow their own shells. They find empty ones left by other creatures and move in, carrying their borrowed homes around, switching to larger shells as they grow. It's a housing market based entirely on scavenging, on making use of what others have finished with, on accepting that you might live in a space designed for someone else's body. The hermit crab doesn't care that the shell doesn't match its personality or wasn't built to its specifications. It just cares that the shell works, provides protection, feels secure. Maybe you're living in a shell you found rather than made, a life that doesn't perfectly fit, circumstances you didn't design, a situation you inherited. That's okay. The hermit crab is no less a crab for wearing borrowed armor. You're no less yourself for working with what you found. And tonight, whatever shell you're in, this bed, this home, this version of your life, it's enough. It's keeping you safe while you rest. Seagrass meadows, found in shallow coastal waters, produce as much oxygen as the Amazon rainforest while occupying far less space. These underwater plants stabilize sediment with their roots, provide nursery habitat for countless species of fish and invertebrates, and sequester carbon more efficiently than most terrestrial ecosystems. They're quiet achievers, these grasses, waving gently in the current, overlooked by people who don't understand their importance, essential despite their humility. You might feel overlooked sometimes too, might wonder if what you do matters, might feel like background scenery in someone else's dramatic story. But seagrass doesn't need to be impressive to be vital. It just grows, bends with the current, does its work of filtering and producing and sheltering, and the whole ecosystem depends on it continuing. Your quiet work matters too. The steady, unglamorous labor of showing up, of trying, of continuing. You don't have to be the coral reef to matter. You can be the seagrass, humble and absolutely essential. The Coriolis effect, caused by Earth's rotation, makes ocean currents curve right in the northern hemisphere and left in the southern hemisphere. This invisible force shapes the paths of hurricanes, the flow of ocean gyres, the distribution of nutrients, and the climate of entire continents. No individual water molecule knows about the Coriolis effect or chooses to turn. It simply moves forward and gets deflected by forces larger than itself, swept into patterns it doesn't understand. You too are subject to forces larger than yourself, cultural currents, historical moments, family patterns, biological imperatives, things that shape your path without asking permission. And that's okay. You don't have to understand every force acting on you. You don't have to consciously navigate all the invisible influences. You can be the water molecule, simply moving, simply responding, swept along by the great currents while thinking you're choosing your own direction. Both things are true and both are fine. Parrotfish eat coral and excrete sand. They spend their days biting chunks of coral to get at the algae growing on it, grinding the limestone in their guts, and pooping out fine white sand. A single parrotfish can produce hundreds of pounds of sand per year, meaning many tropical beaches are largely made of parrotfish poop. What seems like destruction, all that coral being eaten, is actually creation, transformation, the making of beaches where tourists will someday walk. What goes in as one thing comes out as something else entirely, something beautiful and useful in its new form. Your own process of taking an experience and transforming it through thought, through dreaming, through conversation and art and simply living, is like this too. You consume the raw stuff of life and produce something new. What comes out might not look like what went in, but that's the point. That's transformation. That's the work of being alive. Tonight, your dreaming mind will eat the coral of today's experience and make some beaches. The salinity in the ocean varies. The Baltic Sea is almost fresh, while the Red Sea is exceptionally salty, and the Persian Gulf even saltier. These differences matter enormously to the creatures that live there, defining who can survive where, shaping entire ecosystems around the question of how much salt the water holds. What's undrinkable to one species is perfect for another. What's too harsh for this creature is exactly right for that one. There's no objective, right, amount of salt, just different conditions suited to different forms of life. The same is true for you. The conditions you need might be too intense or too mild for someone else, but that doesn't make your needs wrong. You're adapted to your particular salinity, your specific environment. Stop comparing your ocean to someone else's sea. They're different bodies of water. They're supposed to be different. You're not too much or too little. You're exactly salty enough for the life you're living. Hagfish produce slime as a defense mechanism. When threatened, They secrete fibrous proteins that expand in seawater, creating a thick, suffocating slime that chokes predators' gills. A single hagfish can turn a bucket of water into slime in seconds, then tie itself into a knot and scrape the slime off its own body, swimming away clean while its attacker flounders. It's such a strange, specific defense, so perfectly adapted to submarine life, so unlike anything we use on land. Evolution finds the weirdest solutions sometimes, the most unexpected answers to survival's questions. Your own coping mechanisms might seem strange to others, might not make sense to someone who doesn't live in your particular ocean, but if they work for you, they're valid. You don't have to defend your defenses or explain your strategies. The hagfish doesn't apologize for its slime. Tonight, you don't need any defenses at all. Nothing here threatens you. You can relax the slime production and just exist, clean and simple and safe. Rogue waves, once thought to be sailors' myths, are now confirmed real. Massive waves that appear suddenly in open ocean, sometimes twice as tall as the surrounding swells, caused by the random convergence of multiple wave patterns. They're not predictable, can't be forecast, and disappear as quickly as they arrive, but they're capable of sinking ships or damaging oil platforms. The ocean can be calm for days and then throw up this sudden anomaly, this brief moment of chaos, before returning to normalcy. Life has rogue waves too. Days when everything was fine suddenly become overwhelming, when normal challenges converge into something briefly insurmountable, when you're hit by something twice as big as you expected. And like actual rogue waves, these moments pass. The ocean doesn't stay in that state. The wave breaks and dissolves and the sea returns to its usual rhythms. Whatever rogue wave you've been hit by lately, it's already dissipating. You survived it, which means you're stronger than it was. Tonight, the sea is calm again. You can float in safety. Let's pause here again just for a moment. Settle deeper into your pillow. Feel how your breathing has slowed, how your body has gotten heavier as we've journeyed together through these oceanic wonders. You're doing so well. If you're still awake, there's no pressure to change that. Sleep will come when it comes. And if your mind has wandered from the facts, that's perfect too. These words are just a gentle current carrying you, not a lecture you need to remember. The ocean doesn't quiz the fish on its geography. The waves don't test the shore on its knowledge. Everything here is just being, just existing, just flowing along in its own time. That includes you. You don't have to do anything right now except keep breathing softly and letting these words wash over you like waves on a gentle shore. The ocean contains about 20 million tons of dissolved gold, but also uranium, lithium, silver, basically traces of every element, all mixed together in solution so dilute you'd never notice. The sea is a soup of the periodic table, a liquid library of chemistry holding a little bit of everything. You could spend a lifetime trying to extract that gold and make no profit because it's too dispersed, too mixed in with everything else to isolate. But it's there, undeniably there, value dissolved throughout the volume. Maybe you feel like this sometimes, like your talents or worth are too diffuse to extract, too mixed in with everything else to showcase, present but not provable. The ocean doesn't worry that its gold can't be mined economically. The gold is still real, still valuable, still itself even in solution. Your worth doesn't depend on whether it can be extracted or quantified or converted to currency. It just is, dissolved throughout everything you are. Dolphins have names, signature whistles that they use to identify themselves, and that other dolphins use to call them. A dolphin mother will whistle her own signature frequently around her newborn, teaching the calf what to call her, establishing identity through sound. These aren't just random noises but actual identifiers, unique acoustic labels that persist for life. Other dolphins will use these whistles to get each other's attention across distances or in murky water where sight doesn't help. Imagine being called by a sound that's uniquely yours, that you chose, or that arose from your own particular vocal apparatus, that serves as your name in a language of whistles and clicks. You have names too, given names, nicknames, titles, the things people call you. But you also have an internal signature, a sense of self that precedes language, that exists before anyone names it. Tonight, you don't need any names at all. You can just be the nameless awareness resting here, the consciousness that exists even when identity blurs. Box jellyfish have eyes, 24 of them in fact, despite having no brain to process visual information. Some of these eyes are simple light detectors, but others have lenses and can form images. How an image is used by a creature without a brain is a mystery science hasn't fully solved. The jellyfish sees somehow, and responds to what it sees, navigating around obstacles and hunting specific prey despite having no central processor to interpret visual data. Awareness doesn't always require the systems we think it needs. Experience can exist in forms we don't fully understand. You don't have to understand how consciousness works to be conscious. Don't have to explain your awareness to be aware. Like the box jellyfish, you can experience without explaining, can perceive without processing, can simply be the creature that somehow sees despite not knowing how seeing works. Tonight, let your brain rest from trying to understand. Just be the awareness, simple and unexplained. The Gulf Stream carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the coast of Europe, moderating the climate of places that would otherwise be far colder. London is as far north as Calgary, but has milder winters because the ocean current delivers tropical warmth thousands of miles from its source. The Gulf Stream moves more water than all the rivers on Earth combined, an invisible conveyor belt of temperature, a gift from one continent to another that never stops flowing. You've probably been carried by invisible currents too, support systems you didn't recognize, privileges you took for granted, warmth delivered from sources you never saw. It's humbling to realize how much we depend on forces we don't notice, how much our climate, emotional and physical, depends on currents we didn't create and can't control. Tonight, let yourself be carried. You don't have to generate your own warmth or navigate your own path. Just drift in the current. It knows where it's going. Manta rays are among the largest fish in the ocean, with wingspans up to 29 feet, yet they eat some of the smallest prey, zooplankton filtered from the water as they swim with their mouths open. Such enormous bodies sustained by such tiny food, bulk built from thousands of meals of near-microscopic organisms. It seems inefficient, and yet manta rays are graceful and powerful, gliding through the water like underwater birds, their huge wings beating slowly, their movements elegant and seemingly effortless. They prove that you can be sustained by small things, tiny moments of joy, brief kindnesses, modest achievements accumulated over time. You don't need massive victories or enormous validations to build a good life. You can be the manta ray, filtering sustenance from the water you swim through, growing large and graceful on a diet of small things, sustained by abundance so tiny it's almost invisible, but so present you can't help but consume it constantly. Sea ice forms when ocean water freezes, but the ice itself is much less salty than the water it came from. Salt is expelled during freezing, concentrating in the liquid below. This creates super salty, extra cold brine that sinks, driving ocean circulation in the polar regions, affecting currents around the globe. The ice that forms is fresh enough that it was historically used by Arctic explorers as drinking water. What was too salty to drink becomes, through the process of freezing, pure enough to sustain life. Transformation through hardship, purification through cold, something useful emerging from harsh conditions. Your own difficult times probably concentrated some bitterness, left some heaviness behind, but they also created something you could use, some clarity or strength or understanding that only came because you went through that particular freeze. You're not the same as you were before, and that's not a bad thing. The ice is different from the water, but it's still beautiful, still useful, still part of the same ocean cycle. Moray eels have a second set of jaws, pharyngeal jaws that shoot forward from their throat to grab prey and pull it backward into the digestive system. It's like something from a science fiction movie, this nested mouth within a mouth, but it's perfectly real and has evolved independently in several fish families. What seems monstrous is just another solution to the problem of eating in an environment where you can't use hands or gravity or any of the tools land animals take for granted. The ocean breeds strange solutions because it presents strange problems, and the eel's double jaws are elegant in their horror, perfectly adapted despite being unsettling. You too have developed solutions that might seem strange to others, coping mechanisms that work for you even if they'd seem excessive or odd to someone who doesn't face your particular challenges. You don't have to justify your pharyngeal jaws. They do their job. That's enough. Sea sponges are animals, not plants, despite looking like they should be vegetation. They have no organs, no nervous system, no digestive system, just cells loosely organized around a network of pores and channels through which they pump water, filtering out bacteria and particles for food. A sponge is barely more than organized tissue, yet it's been successful for over 600 million years. Simplicity works. Complexity isn't always necessary. The sponge doesn't think or feel or decide or remember, yet it lives and grows and reproduces, fulfills every requirement of life without the apparatus we consider essential to living. Tonight, you can be simple like a sponge, just a body pumping breath in and out, filtering oxygen from air, existing without the need for thought or decision or memory. Let all the complex systems rest. Be the simplest version of alive. Just here, just breathing, just barely organized tissue that somehow amounts to life. The Indian Ocean is the warmest ocean on Earth, and its warmth drives the monsoon systems that bring seasonal rains to billions of people across South Asia. The ocean doesn't just sit there. It participates in weather, influences climate, makes rain possible in regions thousands of miles from any coast. That vast body of warm water evaporates into the air, and the moisture travels on wind currents until it condenses and falls as rain on fields and cities, filling wells and rivers, making agriculture possible. The ocean reaches inland through the sky, touches places that never see a wave, provides for people who might never visit a beach. Your influence probably reaches farther than you know too. Words you've spoken that affected someone more than you realized. Actions whose consequences rippled outward in ways you never saw. Warmth you provided that evaporated into someone else's atmosphere and fell as rain in their interior life. You don't have to see your impact to have one. The ocean doesn't watch where its evaporated water goes. It just provides the warmth, the moisture, the potential, and trusts the system to distribute it. Nudibranchs, colorful sea slugs found in oceans worldwide, are often toxic or bad-tasting, and their bright colors advertise this fact to potential predators. It's called aposematic coloration, warning colors that say, "Don't eat me, you'll regret it." But here's the beautiful part. Nudibranchs don't make their own toxins. They eat toxic sponges or anemones, incorporate those toxins into their own tissues, and then display colors that communicate their acquired danger. They're wearing stolen armor and honestly advertising it, trusting that the truth of their toxicity matters more than the fact that they borrowed it. You've probably borrowed strength too, lessons from parents, courage from friends, wisdom from books or teachers or hard experience. That borrowed strength doesn't make you weak or fake. You incorporated it, made it part of yourself, and now it's genuinely yours. You can be bright and honest about what you're made of, including the parts you learned from others. It all counts. It's all really you now. The ocean's deepest point, Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, has been visited by humans only 3 times. Fewer people have been to the deepest ocean than have walked on the moon. It's more remote in some ways than outer space, harder to reach, less known. We've mapped the moon's surface in greater detail than Earth's own ocean floor. There's something poetic about that. How we look outward to the stars while so much mystery remains in our own depths. How we reach for other worlds while this world still holds secrets. Maybe it's easier to explore what's far away than what's deep down. Looking up is less frightening than looking down. But the trench is there whether we visit it or not, holding its darkness and pressure and strange life, patient and undemanding. Your own depths are like that too, vast and mostly unexplored, deeper than anyone from outside could reach, holding things you yourself might never fully understand. And that's okay. You don't have to explore everything. Some mysteries can stay mysteries. Tonight, you can rest on the surface and let the deep be deep. Sea otters are one of the few animals that use tools. They carry rocks under their arms and use them to crack open shellfish on their chests while floating on their backs. It's such a specific, clever behavior passed down through generations, a cultural practice among otters. They don't instinctively know which rock will work best. They try different ones, develop preferences, sometimes keep a favorite rock for days. There's personality in that, individual choice, aesthetic preference even. The otter isn't just surviving, it's making decisions, exercising taste, living with a kind of style. You do this too. You don't just solve problems, you solve them in your particular way with your particular tools and preferences and style. The way you make coffee, the route you walk, the words you choose, these are your tools and techniques, your personal approach to being human. Tonight you can set down all your tools. The otter sleeps without its rock. You can sleep without your coping mechanisms and strategies and tools. For these hours, you don't have to crack anything open. You can just float. Seahorses swim upright, unlike most fish, using a dorsal fin on their backs for propulsion and tiny pectoral fins behind their heads for steering. They're terrible swimmers, among the slowest fish in the ocean, yet they survive just fine by holding onto coral or seagrass with their prehensile tails and ambushing prey that floats past. They've given up on speed and range in exchange for stability and patience. They wait instead of chase, hold on instead of roam, trust that the current will bring what they need. Not every strategy requires movement or hustle or constant effort. Sometimes survival means staying still, gripping something stable and letting life come to you. You don't always have to swim hard or range widely or prove your speed. Sometimes you can be the seahorse, upright and patient, trusting your tail's grip and waiting for the current to deliver what you need. Tonight, you don't have to move at all. You can be even stiller than a seahorse. You can stop waiting entirely and just rest. The Black Sea has an unusual characteristic. Below about 200 meters depth, the water is completely anoxic, containing no oxygen at all and high levels of hydrogen sulfide. Nothing lives in that deep layer except certain bacteria. It's essentially dead water, yet this doesn't make the Black Sea dead overall. The surface layers teem with life, support fisheries, host dolphins and algae in countless species. The dead zone beneath just sits there, dark and still and toxic, separated from the living layer by a boundary of chemistry. You can have dead zones inside you too, parts of your past or your psyche that contain no life, no growth, no possibility, places you shouldn't swim. And that's okay. You can live in your surface waters and let the dead zones lie beneath, neither denying their existence nor diving into them. They're part of your total depth, but they don't have to be where you spend your time. Tonight, stay in the living layers. Let the dead water be dead. It's not your job to resurrect every part of yourself. Orcas have culture. Different pods have different dialects, different hunting techniques, different food preferences passed from generation to generation. Orcas in the Pacific Northwest eat salmon and won't touch seals, while orcas in Antarctic waters hunt penguins and seals but don't fish. These preferences aren't genetic. They're learned, cultural, specific to each family group. An orca raised by a different pod would learn different languages and techniques, would become essentially a different cultural being despite identical biology. You're shaped by your cultures too, family, region, era, all the particular contexts that made you who you are. Someone with your exact genetics raised in different circumstances would be recognizably different. You're not just your biology. You're your learning, your inheritance of technique and language and preference. And culture changes slower than individuals do, so you carry your past with you, speak in dialects learned in childhood, hunt with techniques someone taught you long ago. That's not weakness or stagnation. That's connection, continuity belonging to something larger than yourself. The ocean's food web starts with phytoplankton, microscopic plants that convert sunlight into energy, feeding zooplankton, which feed small fish, which feed larger fish, which feed apex predators. It's a pyramid of energy transfer, each level depending on the one below. all of it ultimately resting on those tiny floating plants invisible to the naked eye. The whale exists because of the phytoplankton, though the two never interact directly. Remove the base and the whole structure collapses. Nothing at the top can survive without the invisible foundations. Your life rests on foundations you don't see too, infrastructure maintained by strangers, labor done by people you'll never meet, systems of support so basic you forget they're not automatic. The food on your plate, the power in your walls, the water in your tap, all of it rests on pyramid levels below your awareness. You're held up by more than you know. Tonight, trust those foundations. They're still there. The plankton is still photosynthesizing. The base of the pyramid still holds. You can rest your weight on it. Some sharks must keep swimming to breathe. They need water moving across their gills constantly, and if they stop, they suffocate. Species like the great white and the mako are literally condemned to motion, to never fully resting, to swimming even while sleeping. It sounds exhausting, and in a way it is, but it's also just their normal. They don't experience it as punishment or curse. It's simply what being a shark means. Maybe you feel like this sometimes, like you can't stop moving or you'll drown, like rest is a luxury you can't afford, like the moment you pause everything will collapse. But here's the thing, you're not a mako shark. You're a human, and humans stop. Humans sleep. Humans need stillness to survive. Whatever feels like it will suffocate you if you pause, it won't. That's fear talking, not biology. You're allowed to stop swimming. Your gills work differently. Lie still and breathe. You're not built to swim forever. Bioluminescent bays exist in a few places around the world. Sheltered bodies of water where dinoflagellates concentrate in such numbers that any motion creates a blue glow. Kayak through these waters at night, and your paddle drips light. Fish leave glowing trails. Your hand moving through the water creates a constellation of sparkles. The light is a stress response from the dinoflagellates, their way of startling predators or attracting predators of their predators. But to human eyes, it's purely magical, purely beautiful, a collaboration between biology and chemistry that looks like fantasy. Sometimes the byproducts of struggle create beauty. Sometimes stress responses, survival mechanisms, the things organisms do just to get by. Sometimes those things look like magic to someone watching. Your own stress responses and survival mechanisms might not feel magical to you, might feel desperate or ugly or crude, but to someone else, to someone looking in from outside, they might shine. The dinoflagellate doesn't know it's creating beauty. It's just trying to survive. You're creating beauty too, even when you're just trying to get through. Especially then. You're still here, and that's wonderful. Or maybe you're not fully here anymore. Maybe you've started to drift in that space between waking and sleep where words wash over you but don't quite land, where you're aware but not quite present. Both states are perfect. There's no wrong way to be right now. Your breathing is deep and slow. Your body is heavy and warm. And whether you hear every word or drift through them like a boat with no anchor, you're exactly where you need to be. The ocean facts will keep coming, gentle and rhythmic as waves, asking nothing of you, just providing this steady stream of wonder and calm. Let yourself float in this stream. Let these words be the current that carries you. There's nowhere to arrive at, no destination to reach. Just this gentle movement toward rest, this soft descent into sleep. You're doing beautifully. Sea cucumbers can expel their internal organs when threatened. shooting out their digestive system to confuse or entangle predators, then regenerating everything over the next few weeks. It's a dramatic defense mechanism, literally throwing your guts at danger, and it works because predators get distracted by the expelled organs while the sea cucumber crawls away. And then, incredibly, the sea cucumber just grows new organs, rebuilds itself, continues living as if nothing happened. What seems like it should be fatal is just temporary. What looks like total loss is actually strategic sacrifice. You've probably had to expel parts of yourself too, relationships, jobs, identities, beliefs that were once central, and it felt like losing your guts, like you couldn't possibly survive without them. But you did survive. And probably, if you're honest, some things grew back better than before, or you discovered you didn't need them as much as you thought. You're more resilient than you feel. The sea cucumber knows something about regeneration that you're still learning. Tonight, rest in your wholeness, whatever that looks like right now. Everything you need is either with you or on its way back. Shipwrecks become artificial reefs, giving structure for coral to grow on, providing habitat for fish and invertebrates. Human disaster becomes ocean opportunity. Our failures sink to the bottom and become someone else's home. There's something redemptive in that. The idea that even wrecks serve a purpose, that even sunken dreams provide shelter, that loss transforms into foundation. The ocean doesn't judge the ship for sinking. It just makes use of what's there, turns steel and wood into substrate for new life. Your failures are like this too. They hurt when they happen, they feel like disaster, but given time they become structure, something solid in your history that other things can attach to and grow from. The person you are now has grown partly on the wreck of earlier selves, earlier dreams that didn't make it. That's not sad. That's how reefs form. That's how depth develops. Tonight, you don't have to fix any wrecks or recover any losses. You can let them lie where they fell and trust that they're serving purposes you can't see yet. The oldest living ocean creature we know of was a clam, Ming the clam, found off Iceland, determined to be 507 years old when it was accidentally killed during research. 507 years of filtering water on the cold seafloor, living through the entire modern era while barely moving, barely growing, just existing in the slow, patient way of clams. What was Ming thinking about for 5 centuries? Nothing, presumably. Clams don't think. They just filter and exist, present for unimaginable lengths of time, without needing narrative or meaning or purpose. Just alive, year after year, century after century on the dark seafloor where nothing much happens. There's something humbling about that kind of existence, that pure being without becoming, that contentment to simply continue. You don't have to accomplish anything in your life to justify it. Ming the clam didn't accomplish anything except 500 years of filtering seawater, and we named it, studied it, marveled at it. Simply existing is enough. Simply continuing is remarkable. Tonight you're continuing. That's enough. That's everything. Tsunamis in deep ocean are barely noticeable. They might be only a foot high, traveling at jet speed across thousands of miles of open water. Ships pass over them without realizing, birds fly above them unaware, and yet when these waves reach shallow water they pile up and up and up, becoming walls of water that can devastate coastlines. All that energy was there in the deep, traveling invisibly, dangerous only in potential. Most of the time, the dangerous things are moving under us without our knowledge, threats that haven't manifested yet, energies traveling at speed but not yet concentrated into catastrophe. This could be terrifying, but it could also be oddly comforting. The awareness that we're almost never aware of the real dangers, that we survive most threats without knowing they existed. Right now, as you lie in bed, there are probably tsunamis of various kinds moving through your life, and you're blissfully unaware, and that unawareness is a gift. You can't prepare for everything. You can't see every wave coming, so you might as well rest. Worrying won't give you warning. Better to sleep and trust you'll respond to whatever arrives when it arrives. Seahorses mate for life and greet each other every morning with an elaborate dance, spiraling around each other, changing colors, basically saying hello and reaffirming their bond before going about their day. It's not just breeding behavior. They do this even when not reproducing, as if checking in, as if maintaining connection is its own purpose separate from any practical goal. What a lovely way to live, starting each day by acknowledging your chosen partner, by dancing together for no reason except that you're together, by making connection itself the point. The seahorses don't take each other for granted just because they're bonded for life. They still dance. They still greet. You probably have relationships that have fallen into routine, connections you maintain but don't celebrate, people you love but no longer dance with. That's understandable. Life gets busy. Demonstrations become unnecessary once the bond is established. But maybe the seahorses know something. Maybe celebration shouldn't wait for special occasions. Maybe every morning is worth a dance. Not tonight, though. Tonight you can skip the dancing. Tonight you can just rest in the knowledge that bonds persist even without performance, that love continues even in stillness. The seahorses will dance again tomorrow. So can you. The Red Sea got its name possibly from seasonal blooms of red-colored algae, or possibly from the red mountains along its shores, or possibly from a mistranslation of ancient words. Nobody is quite certain anymore. We've been calling it that for thousands of years, and the origin is lost, but the name persists. Language carries forward even when meaning fades. Words continue when reasons are forgotten, and we keep saying things whose origins we can't trace. You carry words like this too, probably. Phrases from your childhood whose sources you've forgotten, opinions you hold but can't remember forming, habits whose original purposes have dissolved but whose patterns remain. You're made partly of inherited language, borrowed phrases, meanings you didn't create but learned so young they feel native. And that's okay. The Red Sea doesn't need to know why it's called red to be the Red Sea. You don't need to know the origin of every part of yourself to be yourself. Tonight, let the etymology rest. You can be the sea, regardless of name. Ghost nets are fishing nets lost or abandoned in the ocean, and they continue catching fish and marine life for years, sometimes decades, killing indiscriminately, never hauled up, never emptied, just drifting and trapping until they finally break down into microplastics. They're accidental death machines, unintended consequences that keep operating long after anyone meant them to, traps that outlive their purpose. You might have ghost nets in your life too, beliefs or habits that once served a purpose but now just catch and hold things unnecessarily, patterns that keep operating even though you've moved on from the circumstances that created them. Maybe anxiety that was once protective but is now just limiting. Maybe defenses that were once necessary but now just isolate. Ghost nets are hard to find and hard to remove, but organizations are trying, sending divers to locate and haul up these deadly relics. You can do this work too, gently and over time, finding the old traps and deactivating them. But not tonight. Tonight you don't have to fix anything. Just be aware that some of what catches you isn't meant for you anymore, and someday when you're ready, you can cut yourself free. Amphipods are tiny crustaceans found at every depth of the ocean, including the deepest trenches. In fact, the very deepest parts of the ocean host amphipods that have never seen light, have never known anything but crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, feed on scraps that rain down from the world above, and are perfectly content. They're not suffering down there. That's just where they live, what they're adapted to, their normal. What would kill you instantly is their comfortable habitat. It reminds us that extreme is relative, that one creature's nightmare is another creature's home, that we can't judge living conditions by our own requirements. Someone else's life might look unbearably hard to you, but they might be fine. Your life might look impossible to someone else, but you're managing. The amphipod in the trench isn't brave for living there, it's just living. You're not brave for handling what you handle, you're just living. It's your trench, your pressure, your normal. And you're surviving it, which means you're exactly adapted enough. Tonight, you can stop surviving and just be. Let the pressure equalize. Let the adaptation rest. Tidal pools are ecosystems unto themselves. Small bodies of water left behind when the tide goes out, isolated for hours before the ocean returns. The creatures that live there must be incredibly resilient, able to handle rapid temperature changes, changing salinity, the risk of desiccation, predation from land and sea both. Life in a tidal pool is basically hard mode, maximum variability, constant change between extremes. Yet these pools are often teeming with life. Anemones and sea stars and small fish and crabs, all adapted to instability, all comfortable with the fact that their world changes dramatically twice a day. Maybe your life feels like a tidal pool sometimes, exposed and protected by turns, conditions changing faster than you can adapt, extremes alternating with no regard for your preferences. That's exhausting. But look at what survives in tidal pools. Look at what thrives there. You're tougher than you think. You're adapted to variability even if you wish you were. The ocean will return. The tide always comes back. Right now, whether you're exposed or submerged, you're okay. You've survived every previous tide. Tonight, rest in whatever phase you're in. The cycle continues without your management. Albatrosses can fly for thousands of miles without landing, sleeping while gliding on air currents, living most of their lives in the air above the open ocean. They come to land only to breed, spending perhaps a few months on remote islands before returning to the sky, to the wind, to the endless flight over endless water. It's an almost unimaginably different way of living. No home except motion. No rest except what you can grab while gliding. Relationships with the ocean's surface but never the depths. Never stopping, never settling. It would drive most creatures mad, but the albatross is built for it, adapted for this life of perpetual travel. You might feel like an albatross sometimes, like you can't land, can't stop, can't settle without falling. Like rest is something you do while still moving, like stillness would mean disaster. But here's the difference. You're not an albatross. You need to land. You need to stop. Your wings aren't designed for perpetual flight. Tonight you're on land, grounded, settled, and that's not failure, it's necessity. Let yourself land completely. Let the wind rest. You can fly again later. The Bermuda Triangle is not actually more dangerous than any other part of the ocean. The reputation for mysteriously vanished ships and planes is based on a few coincidences, some sensational journalism, and the human tendency to find patterns even in randomness. Statistically, no more vessels are lost there than anywhere else. But the legend persists because we want to believe in mystery, want to think that some places are different, some zones fundamentally strange. We want the world to have its spooky corners, its unexplained regions. Maybe you have Bermuda Triangles in your life too, things you think of as cursed or doomed or fundamentally broken, areas where you believe nothing will work out. But probably it's not actually cursed. Probably it's just where you happen to experience some random bad luck, and then you created a narrative around it. Not everything means something. Not every pattern is real. Some things are just chance, just weather, just the normal distribution of good and bad in a life. Tonight, you don't have to solve any mysteries or explain any patterns. You can let the Bermuda Triangle be just ocean, neither more nor less mysterious than anywhere else. You can let your problems be just problems, neither cursed nor doomed. Just the normal stuff of living that will get solved or won't on its own schedule. Coral spawning happens on a predictable schedule tied to the moon and water temperature. One night a year, sometimes 1 hour of that night, entire reefs release their eggs and sperm simultaneously, turning the water into a blizzard of genetic material. The timing has to be precise because eggs and sperm only survive a short time, and coral can't move to find each other, so synchronized spawning is necessary for reproduction. Somehow every coral knows the schedule, responds to the same cues, participates in the same moment despite having no communication system we can detect. It's one of nature's most spectacular events, millions of individual polyps doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, trusting the system, following the calendar, contributing their tiny part to the vast collective effort. You're part of systems like this too. Collective efforts where your individual contribution matters but isn't visible, synchronized actions where everyone does their part without needing to see the whole. You show up, you do what you do, and it combines with everyone else's showing up and doing to create something larger. Tonight, you're participating in the collective human practice of sleeping. Billions of people around the world doing this same thing at different times. All of us taking our turns at rest. All of us trusting the system. You're not alone in your sleep. You're spawning rest into the world, contributing your recovery to the collective effort. Close your eyes. It's your hour. Remeras are fish with a suction disc on top of their heads, which they use to attach to sharks, whales, manta rays, or even boats, hitching a ride while feeding on scraps or parasites. They're not parasites themselves. They don't harm their hosts, just share the ride and the leftovers. It's pure opportunism, taking advantage of someone else's power and motion without giving much back but also without taking much away. The shark doesn't seem to mind. The remora gets to travel the ocean without swimming much. It's not noble or fair, but it works. You've probably been a remora at times, attaching to stronger people or established systems, benefiting from structures you didn't build, riding momentum you didn't create. And that's okay. That's not cheating or failure. That's strategy. Sometimes the smartest thing to do is attach to something that's already moving. You don't always have to be the shark. Sometimes you can be the remora, and there's no shame in that. Tonight you're not moving at all. You're not the shark or the remora. You're just you, unattached, floating free, requiring nothing from anyone. Rest your suction disc. You don't need to hold on to anything right now. The ocean's nitrogen cycle is incredibly complex, involving bacteria that fix nitrogen from the atmosphere, other bacteria that convert it to forms plants can use, still other bacteria that convert it back to gas. A whole invisible ecosystem of microbes managing chemistry at scales we can't see. Without these bacteria, the entire ocean food web would collapse. They're the foundation underneath the foundation, the support system for the support systems. Nobody celebrates bacteria. Nobody thanks them. They just do their work in darkness and obscurity, essential and unnoticed. You do work like this too. Invisible labor that makes everything else possible, effort nobody sees or acknowledges. The kind of contribution that only gets noticed when it stops. Showing up, maintaining, continuing the basic work of keeping things together. It's not glamorous, but the ocean runs on unglamorous work. The nitrogen cycle doesn't get documented in nature films, but without it, there'd be no whales to film. Your invisible work matters. But tonight, even invisible work can rest. The bacteria keep going, but you don't have to. Tonight, someone or something else can keep the cycles turning. You've done enough. Sailors' valentines are intricate designs made from shells, created in the 19th century supposedly by sailors on long voyages to give to their loved ones upon return. Except they weren't actually made by sailors. They were produced by local artisans in Barbados and sold to sailors to take home. The whole romantic narrative was marketing, but that doesn't make the objects less beautiful or the gesture less meaningful. The sailor who bought one and brought it home still chose it, still carried it across the ocean, still presented it with love even if he didn't personally glue every shell. Sometimes the narrative we tell about something is sweeter than the truth, and that's okay. Sometimes the meaning comes from what we do with the object, not where it came from. You tell yourself stories too, about who you are, how you got here, what your life means. Some of those stories might be more narrative than fact, more poetry than history. That's fine. The story doesn't have to be literally true to be meaningful. Tonight, you don't have to fact-check your self-narrative. You can rest in the version that feels true, the story that helps you sleep. The sailor's valentine was always more about the giving than the making. Whale psalms change over time. Humpback whales gradually modify their psalms year by year, and these changes spread through populations like cultural fashions. A new phrase invented by one whale will be adopted by others, become popular, fade out and be replaced by the next innovation. It's genuinely creative, genuinely evolving, a living tradition passed between individuals and across generations but never static, never finished. The song a whale sings this year will be different from the song it sang last year, and both will be beautiful, and both will be correct. You're allowed to change your song too. You're allowed to be different than you were, to drop old phrases that don't fit anymore, to adopt new elements that feel right even if they're not traditional. The whale doesn't worry about authenticity or consistency. It just sings the version that emerges this year in this moment with these companions. Your song can change. You can change. The ocean doesn't demand consistency. It celebrates variation. Tonight, maybe you don't need to sing at all. Maybe tonight is for silence, for listening to your own internal waters, for resting between one song and the next. The new phrases will come. For now, be quiet. Be still. Let the song rest. Sea lettuce is a type of green algae that looks remarkably like lettuce. Thin, ruffled sheets of green plant material waving in shallow water. It's edible, nutritious, used in salads in various coastal cultures, and it grows fast in nutrient-rich water, sometimes becoming a problem when there's too much runoff causing algae blooms. But in moderation, it's part of the ecosystem, contributing oxygen, providing food and habitat. It's both plant and problem depending on balance, both resource and nuisance depending on perspective. Most things are like this. Their value depends on context, on amount, on how they fit into the larger system. Too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. Just enough of a problem can actually be useful. You're probably trying to figure out what you are too much of or too little of, trying to calibrate your balance, trying to be just the right amount. It's exhausting, this constant self-calibration. Tonight, you don't have to be balanced. You can be whatever amount you are, too much of something, not enough of something else, and just rest in your current composition. The sea lettuce doesn't stress about whether it's a bloom or a crop. It just grows. You can just be, without judging whether you're too much or too little. Tomorrow you can worry about balance. Tonight just exist. The ocean has layers of sound. The deep sound channel, around 3,000 feet down, is where sound waves can travel for thousands of miles with minimal loss because the water's properties at that depth trap and guide the sound. Whales use this channel to communicate across ocean basins, sending messages through a natural acoustic highway that predates human technology by millions of years. The ocean figured out long-distance communication long before we did, built sound channels into its very structure, provided for the connection needs of creatures that might be separated by unimaginable distances. Your words travel through channels too, cultural languages, technological platforms, social contexts that guide and sometimes distort what you're trying to say. Sometimes you're heard clearly across great distances. Sometimes your meaning gets lost between layers. Sometimes you're shouting in the wrong channel and nobody's listening there. It's not always about what you say or how well you say it. Sometimes it's about whether you're in the deep sound channel or not, whether you found the layer where transmission is possible. Tonight, you don't need to communicate anything. You can let all the channels rest. You don't have to send or receive. You can be silent water, holding the potential for sound but not making any, keeping the medium ready but not currently in use. Rest your voice. Rest your listening. Let the deep sound channel lie empty for these hours. The whales will sing tomorrow. And here we are, at the end of our journey through the ocean's gentle secrets. We've traveled from the surface down to the deepest trenches, from frozen poles to tropical reefs, through the lives of creatures strange and familiar, all while you've been lying here safe and warm, letting these watery wonders wash over you like waves on a distant shore. The ocean is still out there right now, exactly as we've described it, vast and patient and mysterious, covering most of our planet, doing its work of breathing oxygen into the atmosphere and driving weather systems and hosting more life than we can count. It's been doing this for billions of years, will continue long after we're gone, utterly indifferent to whether we understand it or not, content to simply be the ocean, enormous and deep and endlessly fascinating. And you're here, having listened or half listened or mostly dreamed through this collection of oceanic facts, and that's exactly what you needed to do. There was never any expectation that you'd stay alert for the whole thing, never any requirement that you absorb or remember or think deeply about what you've heard. These facts were just a vehicle, just a gentle stream of words to occupy your mind while your body did what bodies do when they're ready, softened and slowed and sank toward sleep. Maybe you learned something tonight. Maybe some fact will stick with you and surface tomorrow in a conversation or a quiet moment. Maybe the image of whale falls or bioluminescent bays or seahorses holding hands will come back to you and make you smile. Or maybe not. Maybe all of this will dissolve like foam on a beach, leaving nothing but a vague sense of having been somewhere calm and watery. Both outcomes are perfect. The ocean teaches us, if we're willing to learn, that vastness doesn't require complexity, that depth doesn't require drama, that something can be powerful while remaining gentle. Water is soft, you can put your hand right through it, yet given enough volume and time, water shapes continents, carves canyons, dissolves mountains. Water doesn't hurry or force or demand. It just persists, patient as stone, trusting that persistence is its own kind of power. You have this quality too, even if you don't always feel it, this capacity for gentle persistence, this ability to shape your world not through force but through simply continuing, showing up day after day, wearing away obstacles not by attacking them but by flowing around them again and again until they smooth out or break down or become something you can live with. You're more like water than you realize. Tonight, be water completely. Formless, yielding, finding the lowest point and settling there, becoming still. If you're still awake, and it's okay if you are, sleep comes when it comes. Just notice your breathing now. Notice how easy it is, how automatic, how your body knows exactly what to do without any conscious instruction. You're breathing like the ocean breathes, in and out, endless and rhythmic, the same pattern repeated with infinite patience. You don't have to think about it or improve it or do it correctly. It's already happening perfectly. Everything is already exactly as it needs to be. Thank you for being here tonight, for choosing this particular journey into the ocean's mysteries, for trusting these words to carry you toward rest. If this helped, if you'd like more journeys like this one, you know what to do. Subscribe to find your way back here, leave a like if you're feeling generous. Share this with someone else who needs gentle facts and soft words to fall asleep too. But truly, there's no pressure. You've already given this video everything it needed just by being here, just by listening or drifting or sleeping. You're enough exactly as you are. The ocean is still out there, endless and patient. The waves are still rolling toward shores you'll never see. The creatures of the deep are still living their slow, strange lives in darkness and pressure. The tides are still turning on their ancient schedule. And you You can let all of that continue without you for these next hours. The ocean doesn't need your attention to keep being the ocean, and you don't need to stay conscious to keep being you. So let go now if you haven't already. Let yourself sink like something heavy and peaceful down through the layers of consciousness, past the sunlight zone of active thought, through the twilight zone of half-dreams, into the midnight zone where sleep lives, deep and dark and restorative. The ocean is holding you, has always been holding you. You're mostly water yourself, after all, mostly ocean in a temporary skin bag, animated seawater dreaming of itself. Sleep well, ocean creature. Sleep deep and dreamless, or sleep full of strange visions of underwater gardens and singing whales. Either way, sleep knowing you're safe, knowing you're exactly where you need to be, knowing that morning will come with its own waves and you'll be ready to meet them. But for now, there's only this: the dark, the quiet, the gentle descent into rest. The ocean is waiting. The deep is calling. Let yourself go down. Let yourself dissolve. Let yourself become indistinguishable from the water around you, formless and peaceful and perfectly, finally still. Good night.